Thanks for coming out this morning. And so since Monday evening, we have been in your town secret shopping you. And we did not talk to Tammy. We did not. Matter of fact, I met Tammy at the conference, but I did not talk to her or see her until this morning since then. And so we did not get any preconceived notions of what was here or anything. We had to come here just like any other first-time visitor. And so what we have done with this assessment is we looked at your marketing effectiveness. Was it easy to find information about you? Was it good enough to close the sale? How did you stack up against all the other towns in the area? Was it convenient to get information? And then we did the on-site assessment, and this is what we're most going to talk about today. We're going to include all that marketing stuff, but we will do that a little later when we get back home. But what we looked at was signage, your gateways, were we able to find stuff to do? What was our first impression, the overall appeal, critical mass, I'll tell you about that. All of these different things right here we will talk about, things to see and do. And so that is what we've been doing. Matter of fact, we went through a list of 60 different items, and I'm going to go through every single one of them. Just kidding. We're going to just talk on the ones where we think there could be something. And by the way, when we get back, we are going to do one of these assessment findings and suggestions reports. So you can feel free to take notes, but we are going to give you a report that tells you about our findings, everything that we did. And so we came up with some suggestions for you. By the way, we don't call these recommendations. They are suggestions. Here's why. We never talk to you first. So it'd be a little presumptuous for us to come from the outside and tell you what you should do when we never even communicate with you first. And so we give you lots of suggestions. And by the way, we have never been here before. We don't know what Concordia was like 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 3 years ago, or last week. So what you're seeing, there may be things that you see that you're already working on. This will just validate that. And so it's going to be fun. And here is our Concordia experience. We showed up on Monday, late afternoon. It was approaching 4 o'clock or so. We did come out. The way we came out is we came out on 70 all the way out. And then we came up north on 81 and came all the way up. So that's the way we came. So we did not go from the Kansas City airport over the north route. We came the long way. Because I had to stop in Lawrence and I had to stop in Topeka for a minute. So that's why we came that way. So when we arrived, the first thing we did is we approached Concordia, and our very first impression was it was clean, it was uncluttered, and it was beautiful. Our very first impression of Concordia was positive. If it wasn't, I would tell you, because you're going to see some things in here that may make some people uncomfortable. We loved the fact, like, the bank was beautiful, the lawns are mowed. I mean, overall, we thought we had a good first impression. We did not see any signage that said you had to downtown. So our first impression is maybe this is the downtown on the highway. Okay? So the first thing it is we came in, we drove right past the Holiday Inn Express where we're staying. And the first thing we did said, okay, we got to get something to eat. So what did we do and what do visitors do? We went right to TripAdvisor. And we saw Jitter's Coffee House. Now, we thought about, Jitter's Coffee House, that doesn't sound like a dinner place. I'm just telling you what we saw, or what we thought. El Puerto, we saw that. And then we saw Heavy's Barbecue. That sounded pretty good. It's rated number 3 of 14 restaurants. By the way, TripAdvisor is now the most used travel website in the world. So we're going to talk about that. So we decide, okay, let's eat at Heavy's. And so, first of all, my first thing is Heavy's. Boy, is that the outcome of eating there? We weren't too sure, but it looked pretty good, and so that's what we did. Now, this is what we saw. And where you see those 1, that is a suggestion. Our first impression, we had second thoughts when we saw it. Yeah, I'm not so sure. Because what we're seeing here, this is what we saw. We saw a dumpster, another dumpster. The barbecue is kind of, I don't know what that is out there. This is a different building. But this is our impression. All it says is eat here. And so we weren't sure even if that was Heavy's, but that's what the address said. And so, what I did is Trompe l'oeil mural. I'm going to tell you about Trompe l'oeil in a little bit. So if you're wondering what that is. But you know what? I would just say, could you put a cedar fence or some way to screen that? But I'm telling you, our first impression was, I'm not so sure we want to eat there. And part of the challenge is so we pulled up and we saw the cones here and we thought we better not park there. We thought this was the main entrance to Heavy's. And it was okay. It wasn't great. We didn't realize there's another entrance down here. And so these are the things that you have to make it really easy and simple because we did come in on your main drag through town. And so by the way, let me go back. We did eat there. As a matter of fact, we did pull down a little further, and then we saw, okay, this must be the entrance. But you know what? We didn't even know you had outdoor dining at Heavy's until we were already in the restaurants. See what I mean? It's almost like facing the wrong way. There's not much you can do about that. But I thought if they could clean up this, maybe put their logo up here that says Heavy's. Know when we see it from downtown that we're there. So then we did eat there. The meal was fine. And we did come, and by the way, let me go back. The first person we met, we asked the young girl, probably, I'm guessing 20 years old, I don't know. We asked her, so we've never been here, is there anything to do around here? And I expected what I hear in rural communities everywhere because we've worked in 1,000 cities. I expected her to say, when I said, what is there to do around there? I expected her to say nothing. You know what she said? She goes, well, you ought to see the Brown Grand Theater. And then we have the Nazareth Convent. And then we have this train museum. And then she actually listed things that there were to do in Concordia. So congratulations, our first person actually said the right thing. So then what we did when we were done eating dinner, we went back to the Holiday Inn Express. We walked right in, walked up to the front counter, checked in, and asked her, is there anything to do in Concordia? Once again, a young gal, probably in her early 20s, and she did not say nothing. She also went down the list. And by the way, I seem so shocked because when you've worked in this many rural communities, it's hardly ever will young people say that there's something to do in your town. And so that's 2 for 2. We're really good. And so that was a great start. So we did that. We checked in, got all set up there because this is, for us, it's working. It's not just play. So the next morning we got up and we went. And first thing we thought, we did see a sign on the highway. So heading towards town, heading north, we did see the sign for the convent. And so we did go there. Now, so we went there. We weren't sure where to park right off. But it's a beautiful, stunningly beautiful building. One thing was interesting. We parked at the park across the street because we didn't know where there was parking. And there's no sidewalks. And out here, and so that was a little bit surprising. But we did see the sign, which was great. And welcome to our mother house, which we thought was excellent. And then a couple of things. We'll come back and call for a tour appointment because it said right on the sign that we do tours from 2 to 4 and that you should call first. So it's obvious we weren't going to do a tour right then and there. But one thing amazed us. You are cross-selling your other attractions. Awesome. That is awesome because you don't see that everywhere. Now, one thing is all your attractions should be hanging out signs like this, all of them. So if we go visit these other things, it will say, if we're at those things, it'll say to come here. See what I mean? But this was terrific. We're so pleased to see that you're working together as a community. So you know what? Here we are. We've been here for an evening. The next morning, and so far, you guys are batting 1,000. Do you think it's going to stay that way? And so we did see the park across the street. It was gorgeous. well-maintained. We started driving around. We saw the pool area. We were there just before it opened. It's been very busy the last couple of days. And we even saw the high school. It looks great. And so by about 10, 11 o'clock in the morning, we're going, this is a great place. Love it. And so we were impressed. I have to tell you, our first impressions were impressed. By the way, when site selectors come for regular economic development, they're going to do the same thing we did. They're going to start driving through neighborhoods. They're going to start driving around. They're going to start checking things out. And the school looked good. And so then we saw this thing called the whole wall mural. We saw it in a brochure. And at first, we drove by it and didn't really even notice it. And because, we're heading north and we're looking at the stop sign, we're looking for downtown, and so we didn't see it over here on the left. And so we did go back and did see it. You know what? The whole wall mural, can't you guys be a little more creative with your naming? I mean, it should be the Life in Concordia mural or the Life in Concordia 3D mural, but just the whole wall mural, I thought, you could be more creative than that. And so we started calling it the Life in Concordia three-dimensional mural. And so, and we thought it was amazing. I mean, just really amazing. So that's one thing is, I know you call it the whole wall mural, but you know what? To a visitor, it doesn't have much sex appeal. And it's a cool thing we're seeing. I mean, just the depth of the bricks and everything are really cool. Now, there was no interpretive signage or anything. We got there a little before visitor information was open. And so the other thing is it would be great even if you mounted it on a pole, it would be a little interpretive sign that says that there's actually a video in the museum that tells you about the making of the wall. But there wasn't information like that. And so it'd be good, just a little sign somewhere mounted on one of these posters somewhere that just tells you that's there. By the way, we had no clue that this was part of the museum. We didn't even know that, you know what I mean, that's a common wall. I didn't even know that until later on. And so we did see it right there. How to get to the museum would be good. So some kind of a sign there. And then one other thing is you do need to have 24/7 brochure distribution, which you do have, because you do have it right here. There's a brochure right there. But you know what? That's kind of hidden around the corner. So when you're driving by, you don't really see it. It's not really obvious. So I was sitting there figuring out, man, I'd like you to do something like they did in North Platte, Nebraska. You can't really mount it on the brick wall there. We'd have to put it on a freestanding post. But, they did a really cool thing. It's mounted right here next to the door. But I thought, boy, could we put something like this on a post? And it's got different things. The top lifts up, and so it's kind of weatherproof. There it is right there. So we thought, man, doing something like that would be great. Because before we travel to a place, only 32% of our decisions come from brochures. But once we're here, it jumps to 81%. Once we're here, brochures jump to 81%, far and away more than brochures. Far more than internet. So, here's our suggestion. We want you to create 4 kiosks, standalone kiosks. I'm going to show you my favorite one. This is one of my favorite ones in the United States. You don't have to go, it doesn't have to be exactly like this, but it's in Cape May, New Jersey. Cute little town of about 2,500 residents. They have this little downtown district called Washington Street Mall. And on the mall, they have this cute little, isn't that cute? We thought, man, if you could have like 4 of these somewhere, what's really great about, it says, welcome friends, old and new, linger here a day or two. And then inside, it's got a map, it's got all the brochure distribution. Brochure distribution is so important for restaurants, retail shops, for activities. And we just thought that was really a cute little thing. It does have power to it. And you don't have to go to this expense. I haven't found out how much this costs yet. But we thought doing some kind of a kiosk would be great because visitor information should be working 24/7, 365 days a year. And I thought you should have one at the Merrill. Notice I already renamed it for you. And then maybe one at the Orphan Trade Museum, one downtown somewhere, one near the Holiday Inn. So if we're coming into town, and these can be in lawn areas. And so we thought if you could do 4 of these somewhere, that would be great. And you could, even people passing through, if they saw one along the highway somewhere, And I use the Holiday Inn Express because it's one of the first places you see it. Could be near Walmart or somewhere, but somewhere where people can pull off and get information. Maybe it'll get them to stop. You know, when it comes to tourism, the first rule is to get people to stop. The second rule is if you can get them to stay 2 hours, spending will double. If you can get them to spend the night, it will quadruple. But first thing is getting them to stop. And a visitor information kiosk like that could do that. So, you know, another suggestion would be I'd move this travel information. I'd probably put it right here in the lawn, right in front of the sign. So we see Cloud County Historic Museum 1 block. I'd put it right there so we don't miss it. And so, another suggestion. Oh, they won't. Well, you know what? Sometimes, see, this is where I get in trouble. Sometimes it's better to ask for forgiveness than permission. Your gracious city manager is going, okay. Anyway, I do get it. I do understand that they own that right away. And so, anyway, but, you know, it's at least we did see it there, but it was just put in a little bit. It would have been great. We thought you had amazing architecture downtown. So our first impression even downtown was great. But I'm going to talk about downtown a little later on. So after we checked out the whole wall mural, we decided to go check out the area. So we were just driving around. We're not using a GPS or anything. And so we did see the roadway in. And it says, I think this is best rate in town, you know. And so we drove in there just to check it out. And this is where I get pretty nasty, is we thought it was scary. That was our first impression. We went in, it wasn't very pretty. I mean, we got stuff draped all over the place. There's no beautification of any kind, no hanging baskets, no pots, no planters, no anything. It was just, we were there, we were taking some pictures, and finally the guy came walking out like this. And we just like, whoa, we better get out of here. I mean, he looks serious. And so, you know, we got planters there, but there's nothing in them. And so we didn't know whether this was a conference center. It looked more like a storage place, just stuff piled in there. We got old refrigerators and stuff, junk kind of sitting out there. We have a pool, but we got old cardboard boxes, lots of weeds and everything. And, you know, it was the scariest thing we saw in Concordia. And unfortunately, they're in the hospitality industry. So to us, our guess is that has more permanent residents than it has hotel guests. But I'm just telling you, this is our first impression, what our comments were. So we just went, whew, glad we stayed where we did. And then here's the other thing you need to know. Look at this statistic. 70% of first-time sales come from curb appeal. We all travel. Have you ever said these words? That looks like a nice place to eat. Remember what I said about heavies? That looks like a nice place to stay. If we would have been booked in the Roadway Inn, I would have called my assistant and said, Becky, I need you to make a change right now. Because you know what? If you do, this is a Best Western. Look at this. They put these hanging baskets. Does this look like a nice place to stay? If you took away all of this stuff, it would be pretty nondescript. That's what the power of beautification is. So we're driving around, and what's really cool, this is a first for us. I have never before seen a driving range and a storage place combined. That was a new experience for us. And it's obvious the storage is more important because it's got a new fresh coat of paint and this one doesn't. And so you never know what you're going to find. And so, you know, we're just driving around. We did see the community college, and it looked nice too. So it got a thumbs up from us. And even though we're in the summer, there was a lot of cars parked there. They must be doing a lot of summer classes. You know, one thing that our first impression of Concordia, why is it in this town everything has to be beige, brown, and gray? Come on, how about some burgundy? How about some color somewhere? And so it's just like, man, everything is so drab looking in terms of buildings and stuff. Add some color to it. So it's just a suggestion. You know, we've seen cities that actually have ordinances that don't allow other colors. And we'll say, change the ordinance. But anyway, the college did look nice. And there was no complaints about it. And so we were driving around. And by the way, we kind of ran around the outskirts of the city. And we saw some places that were pretty sketchy. Of course, industrial areas. You know, the covering on this boat is not really protecting it very well. And so we did see the challenged areas of town because we had to check out everything. But then we also saw some amazing scenic vistas. All the farm country around you is just beautiful. We discovered all kinds of little parks everywhere. And we even met some of the locals. Like right here, we did meet Diablo and Alfredo. And we loved it. That's great. There they are. There's their name, home of Diablo and Alfredo. I imagine this is Diablo and Alfredo right there. And there was this right there, be careful. So we were a little reluctant to go up and pet them, but that was kind of cool. We thought that was a cool sign to have. And by the way, I don't know why the cone is in there. They were pretty much protecting it and were, probably belonged somewhere else, like in front of Heavies. But here's the thing, and then we noticed that your high school mascot is the Thunderbirds. Well, wait, we're visitors. So we're driving by, and we see it says Thunderbirds, and then we drive like 1 block later, and all of a sudden it's Panthers. It took us 2 days to discover that the water tower has T-birds on one side and Panthers on the other. So at first we're going, okay, they must have changed their mascot. But we did not know. But anyway, not a big deal. Not a big deal. We thought it was great. We loved the paw prints out in front of the high school. Thought that was awesome in junior high. Those in the street were pretty cool. So far we're doing great. Then we discovered a golf course. We didn't even know you had a golf course. By the way, there's no wayfinding signs to the golf course. There's nothing that even tells. We don't even know. Here's my question. Is it open to the public? You would never know it. So here is the other suggestion. Number one, you have no wayfinding to it, so there's no way to find it. We just happened upon it because we're driving around. So you need some directional signage to some of these things. And it doesn't say anything that it's open to the public. It should say right here, walk-ins welcome if they are. It should say cart and club rentals if there are. It should say restaurant if it is. Or it could even just say open to the public. There is nothing that would lead us to believing that it is open to the public. There's nothing that even says whether it's 9 holes or 18. Then when you drive up to the clubhouse, there's still nothing. Now, we did notice the 19th hole restaurant and lounge, so we figured, well, it must be an 18-hole golf course. Are we right? Because that's the 19th hole. But there's nothing. We didn't know whether we go in this door, or whether you go, is there a pro shop in here? No. Is this an entrance for visitors, or do you just go in is this only a restaurant? Where do you go if you want to go in there and play golf? Where do you go? Do you go in this door? No, around to the south side. Okay. But see what I'm talking about? All I see is on the south side is a restaurant, I think. Or is that the west side? And then when we saw this, is this the restaurant door? Or do I have to keep going? So this is what I'm saying. All you need to do is put some signs. Make it easy for visitors. Because we had no clue. We thought this was the restaurant door, and we're going, no way are we eating lunch there. And by the way, we're the only car in the parking lot. We didn't know whether it was closed for the day because it was a little bit rainy. And so here's my questions for you. It is open to the public. And do you have cart and club rentals? Does anybody know? You can rent, okay. Do you have a pro shop? Can people take golf lessons? The course is, okay. Because we were there twice and there was nobody ever there in the middle of the day. So I'm just letting you know, as a visitor, we assumed that it was closed. The only reason we knew the golf course was open because we did see somebody out there mowing it. So you know what? For $500 in signs, you could tell the world that you are open to the public, that you do accept walk-ins or, we'll take the green fees, that you do have a restaurant, and it starts down there at the signs. So just for hardly any money, you could make this you could help it generate more revenues. And it does look like a beautiful course. So it looks very nice, And then we did see this. And one thing that was really interesting, you never spell out the name. It says it on the sign on the building, CCHC. So we were guessing, well, it must be the Concordia Catholic Health Center. But then we thought, well, maybe because of the cross. And then we thought, well, maybe it's Concordia Children's Health Center. Maybe we guess it must be Health Center. And then finally we had to go ask. They said it's Cloud County. So you might want to spell it out somewhere just so that if there's ever an emergency, we know to look for Cloud County Center, not Concordia or Catholic or something else. Okay? Just little suggestions. So after that, we kind of drove around a little bit. We headed out to this facility. And the brochure, we have a rack card. And I'm going to pull out this rack card right now. Here it is. It's somewhere right in here. And on this rack card, there's not one single mention that this place ever hosts performances. Nothing. We thought this was only a museum. So just so you know, there should be something on your brochure that says, by the way, we do host performances. Check them out on our website. Or a little QR code on here. So, but beautiful, beautiful museum, or beautiful facility. And so we did come up. We weren't really sure whether to go in this door, this door, this door. You might make these little, and I thought the beautification, the benches are great. And you know what's cool about benches? Even if nobody's sitting on them, it makes you feel welcome. It's like having this front porch swing on a house. It just makes people feel welcome. And so we did see right here that you actually do host performances. And that was great. Well maintained. It is pretty, for the most part, up to date. I would probably have July in there pretty soon, so it's an invitation to come back, because we took this picture on the 25th of June, and you don't offer any reason to come back in July or August. Okay? So that's just a little thing that you could do, is always keep that update. But at least we know now that you host performance. And that was a good thing. And then little signs here that would just give you the hours that it's open so we can see it without having to walk up to the doors and then look at the little sign, a little tiny letter. That would just say, tours daily, Monday through Friday, whatever it is. That we can read as we're walking by would be a great thing to do. And so it is, thank you, Emily, for giving us the great tour. It is fabulous. This is one of the best community theaters I've seen, and I have seen thousands of them. It is awesome. So congratulations for that. It is really a beautiful place. When I looked at our itinerary, I said, where are we doing this workshop? And I saw the brown granite. I went, yes, because this is stunning. And so love the Napoleon Bonaparte. We got the tour there, and I'm going, boy, what is the connection? And we did get that story. But I took a bunch of pictures. I sent a couple of them back to the office. We were going, oh my gosh, that's where you get to perform? And so it's beautiful. She showed us the mural that's back behind here, or the curtain. And just really, really stunning place. I mean, something you should really be proud of. Now, here's the challenge. Is so far, we've seen the whole wall mural. We have seen the convent. We haven't gotten a chance to go in it yet. We have seen this, and so far, there hasn't been anything to do, just things to look at, right? So that is a challenge, just so you know so far. And then we saw this and we went, oh my gosh, that would be a fantastic place for an upscale dining. I'll tell you, one missing ingredient in Concordia is some upscale dining. I mean, that is a missing ingredient. And we thought, boy, for dinner and theater, I mean, that would be fabulous. I don't know what it is, who owns it, whatever, but I just thought, man, that could be really an amazing thing right next there. So whatever, it's just, on our wish list for Concordia. I would absolutely think that would be great. And then while we're there, by now it's lunchtime. We're still in our first day. So we headed down, while we're downtown, And we decided to check out Jitters because it was #1 rated. And by the way, we have sandwich boards here. There's nothing on them. And so what happens is you need to have stuff on both sides because people don't just walk this way. So I would urge Jitters to put something on both sides because that was great. Sandwich of the week is right there. So we did go in there and it was fabulous. It, by far, by the way, we tried to eat in all the non-chains you have in town. We pretty much accomplished that. It was by far the most beautiful dining place you have in Concordia. Just exceptional. Service is good. The menu is great. We had lunch there, and what's his name? Does anybody know? John? Oh, Noah. He was great. He knew that we were visitors. I'm lugging around a big camera. He said, you guys must be visiting. He said, yeah. Where are you from? And we told him. And then he said, you know what? You've seen the Brown Grand? I said, yeah, it was really awesome. He says, you got to drive down the street a few blocks and you could see the mansion that they built. He said, it's not open. A couple guys live there, but you can see the mansion they built. It's got the big gargoyles on it and everything. He did such a good job of telling us what else, and we didn't even have to ask. That was cool. And so we did have lunch there. It was excellent. And when I get back, I will put in TripAdvisor that it was great. Sandwiches are great. The service was great, and it was busy. And I even love this. So we need an open close sign. So let's take a bungee cord and a piece of paper and all that. I thought, that's so cool. Talk about ingenious. It's the MacGyver of restaurants. And so, you know what? By the way, for all your retailers, these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 posters. You know what happens is when you have more than 4, just so you know, visitors ignore them all. And I know as a restaurant, as a retail shop, somebody say, can you put this in your window? Can you put this in the window? We're a small community. You need to say, you know what, I can only put in 4. So if we put that in, we got to figure out which one we can take off. But I would urge retailers to never put more than 4 posters or things in there because the human person just ignores them all when they see a clutter of them. Just a little FYI. And so when we were done having lunch there, which was, like I said, fabulous, we did drive down and see the house. Our very first thing was, oh my gosh, I wish there was some way to bring this into public ownership. I'm sure that conversation's happened around town, but it is really a beautiful place. But we could see it declining. Matter of fact, we saw a lot of beautiful historic homes that we just saw falling in disrepair. It was just like heartbreaking. And so we did see that. So while we were downtown, we thought, let's go over to the Cloud County Museum. And by the way, I have been in literally thousands of museums. We have worked in 1,000 communities in 45 states, been in all 50, all across Canada and in Western Europe. And so I expected to see another typical museum experience. So we walked in, the very first thing we saw was that video talking about the wall. That was so cool. I just wish we would have known that when we were at the wall. We probably would have come into the museum even sooner. And so that would be really great. So that was very, very nicely done, and I'm glad it was right there by the main entrance. And so we did spend some time in the museum, and I will tell you that I don't think I have ever been in a museum that had so much stuff. I mean, it was, there was so much stuff. And here was the challenge with it. You know what? Look at all these. You know what I think how you market this museum is to people that have a niche. So if somebody says, I'm really into old washing machines, you won't find a better collection of old washing machines probably in any museum in Kansas. Or if you collect ballpoint pens, they got a whole wall covered of them. Or if you have a real interest in old farm implements. The challenge is for a visitor, there's no stories, there's no context. Everything is meticulously cataloged and is noted when it was donated by who. But as a visitor, I don't care who donated it. I don't care when it was donated. Jane said she thinks this is a Shirley Temple doll. She thinks, she's not sure. There's no information. There's no information on anything in there. It's just a collection of stuff. And it is, for instance, you can go down, they have a whole room that's dedicated to the veterans. And they've got like maybe even hundreds of, they're like in a closet. They're just all hung up in a row. You can't see the front of them. There's no context. There's no, so we don't know how old the doll is. We don't know if it is a Shirley Temple doll. Maybe it was the best-selling doll in its day. There's just no context. All it is stuff. And so that's the missing ingredients without the stories. And so it is amazing. Here we show, I think this is a broom-making station, but how do they make the brooms? And how long did they use this equipment? And where did it come from? If I go back to those washing machines, wouldn't it be cool if we had all the washing machines in a row and say, here's a washing machine they used in the 1850s. By the 1870s, it was like this. By the 1890s, it was like this. In the early 1920s, they were like this. Wouldn't that be cool so that we would learn something rather than just look at stuff? And by the way, I don't want to criticize the museum, but I'm just telling you as a local collection, it's great that you say who donated things. But as a visitor, we want to learn something, not just see a bunch of stuff. And so it was really great that way. So here's some museum notes. Avoid the following words: collections, artifacts, and displays. Here's why. To most people, if it sounds boring, it probably is. If you want people under 50 going in museums, you need to tell stories. You need to make it more interactive. And you know what? We've seen enough old typewriters to last us a lifetime. And so that was even though this was meticulously laid out and organized, I'm going, somebody is a genius at organizing all these things. It just didn't really, we just couldn't get any context. And so, concentrating on the stories that bring them back to life. I'll give you an example. We're working in a place called Elko, Nevada. They had the Northeastern Nevada Museum. In it, they had a wing called the Wanamaker Wildlife Wing. What was interesting about this, they did not just have just stuffed animals. They actually told you how a lion would bring down and kill a wildebeest. They told you the stories. And they did it so much that by the way, when I walked in this museum, it was $6. I went, whoo, that's pretty expensive for a local museum. And they said, by the way, this is an all-day pass. I'm going, yeah, right. The average museum experience is 20 minutes all day. But you know what? I was in this wing for 2 hours because the stories were so fascinating. You know what? Rather than hang up a bunch of branding irons to tell the story, look at it. It says, in the West, marking a beef with a red-hot iron is like placing a 4-footed stake under lock and key. It goes on. It says, occasionally a career in the cattle business was launched by illegally altering a brand, but the rustler's shenanigans usually were halted at the end of a swinging rope. They told the story of one cat. They told the story of this farmer, a rancher. He had all these cattle. They were out in a valley. This valley was fenced off. It had a big gate, and the cattle were disappearing. They would go down there in the desert. There was no human footprints, so they weren't being stolen. There was no carcasses, so it couldn't be wild animals. The gate was secure, so they couldn't just be wandering out. What was happening to the cattle? So the farmer had 2 guys sit there on the hill overlooking the valley in their sleeping bags for several nights with their guns. And finally, one morning, like at 5 o'clock, 4:30, it was not even dawn yet. It was just barely dawn. They could hear somebody down there with the cattle whooping and hollering. Somebody was actually rustling the cattle. So they got out of their sleeping bags, ran down the hills with their guns, and there they caught Crazy Tex Hazelwood wearing these shoes so that his footprints wouldn't be seen as he's stealing the cattle. You know what? I spent 6 hours in that museum. Remember what I said, getting visitors stop. If you can get them to spend 2 hours, spending will double. That's your goal. But the average museum visit lasts between 20 and 40 minutes in the United States. And if you can capture, there it is. And then you must learn to tell stories, not just display artifacts with facts and figures. And then, no offense, but visitors, locals do, and I understand this is more about the locals than maybe visitors. But you know what? We're more interested in the stories. And I'll give you one more. I was working in Huntsville, Texas. They had a veterans museum, helping every American remember through serving. That's what HEART stands for. I walked in there, and it wasn't just artifacts and collections. They actually had these booths that were like 10 feet wide. And in the booth was a soldier, and behind him was his story. There was a soldier from Vietnam. And by the way, these were Canadian, American, Australian, and English. And I went in front of this one booth, and there were people from Korea War. There was like 7 or 8 soldiers. Some of them were booths without soldiers. But I walked up to this one and saw the old guy, Michael Camella. I had just seen the movie Saving Private Ryan. How many of you have seen Saving Private Ryan? Raise your hands. Most of us. You know what? They say the first 20 minutes of Saving Private Ryan is some of the most authentic and powerful cinema in cinema history. I walked up to this booth, and there was Michael Camella. He fought on Omaha Beach that day. He was there. And so he was a little embarrassed. He said, so tell me your story. And there was a group of us gathered around. And he started telling us his story. This is his buddy, who was his next door neighbor. This is Michael. He said that he grew up with his neighbor. They'd known each other since they were 3. In those days, they could join the army when they were 17, which they did. He was with his buddy pulling up to Omaha Beach on the front of one of those landing crafts. He said, we were standing right there in the front, and the Germans were firing at us. He said, we were so scared, we wet our pants. That's how scared we were. And they let down that ramp in the water as they're approaching the beach. And he said, instantly, his best buddy got shot through the hip. He said, I grabbed him, and I jumped off the end of that craft, and we sank like rocks. He said, we weighed like 100 pounds. We're carrying 70 pounds of gear. We sank. The water was 45 degrees. He said, I could hear the bullets whizzing by while we're underwater. And he said, I thought for sure I was going to drown. And he said, I closed my eyes and said a prayer to God to please deliver me. I have a hard time telling this story. And he said, the next thing I know, I was laying my buddy down on the ground on the beach who had been shot through the head while he was underwater. I will never, ever forget Michael Camella, who died a couple years ago. It's always about the stories. Just remember that. So, after the museum, we saw this thing called a floating rock. I expected to see a floating rock in a pond. Instead, we did see the floating ball right here. And so I thought that was pretty cool. And by the way, Jane didn't have any idea how this worked or whatever. I had seen one before, so I actually grabbed it and started to roll it. But you know what you could do here that'd be cool is just put a little interpretive sign. And you know what would be so fascinating? I'll bet this is solid marble, am I right? I'll bet it weighs, I don't know how much it weighs. You ought to put in it. Did you know that this ball weighs 1,500 pounds? Did you know that it takes, and I'm making stuff up, it takes 300 pounds of water pressure just to elevate it enough so that will spin around. That's a tremendous amount of water pressure to raise that ball there. And by the way, if you grab it, you can spin it around. And once it's wet, the colors are just amazing. But there's no signs or anything. If you didn't know better, you would just see a rock there. You wouldn't even notice that was floating. So these are all little things you could do for hardly any money that would give somebody a better experience in Concordia. And so then we saw on this brochure that there was a POW camp, a prisoner of war camp, Concordia. So number one is we went right past the turnoff. There's no wayfinding for it either. What I'm talking about is directional signs. If we're going up 81, where do we turn? We did eventually find it, and we pulled up and went, you're promoting this as an auction? Because I do see this guard tower, but even the letters all wearing off of the balcony here. I'm going, well, let's see. There's no sign. There's nothing that tells you anything about this. Nothing. All there is a little guest book, and even it could use some help. And so, I mean, wouldn't it be great if you could lift that up and there'd be a brochure that tells you what you're seeing? Maybe a map, maybe a story, something. Because we thought, I wonder what this was. Can we walk out there? Is this public? Is it private? Is there a trail? Is this worth seeing? Is it just, what is it? What was it? Maybe it had nothing to do with the POW camp. We had no context, no idea. We saw these buildings here and we thought, I'll bet you anything, these are those part of the POW camp. We should go over and start walking through these buildings. So we drove out of there. We saw this roadway, but we didn't know whether this was a driveway or whether it was a road to get to these buildings. We had no clue. So we didn't go down that road. We went down the next street, and we did see this, prisoner of war camp. We didn't know whether this is a park, whether it's public, whether it's private. We didn't know where to park. There was no information whatsoever. And then we drove in here. We could see the truck up on, and then the dog started chasing us up and down the street. There's no way we're getting out of our car. So we hightailed it out of there. And I'm going, why are you promoting something if there's no context? There's no stories. We don't know what we can see, nothing. And so if you want to promote things like this as a visitor attraction, you need to give us something that makes it worth the trip. Make sense? Am I being harsh or what? And so then we saw there was another one called Clyde's Arboretum. And so we started driving out towards Clyde. No clue what to expect. And on our way out there, we saw a little teeny sign that said Stone Arch Bridge. I went, whoa, whoa, whoa. I remember seeing something about that in a brochure. So we did go down. It was like a treasure hunt. And we found it. I mean, we thought we were going down somebody's back. You know what I mean? There's farm implements in there. We thought, I hope this is okay. But there were signs to it, so I'm thinking that even if it's private, then let's do it. Very cool. Of course, the creek's not running this time of year, or maybe it never runs. There's a nice interpretive sign. And in the sign, there was a dare. You know what the dare was? Nobody has driven over this bridge for years and years and years. You know what? I wanted to drive over that bridge so bad. But I didn't, because Jane said no. And you know who rules the roost? But I just drive over it so I could go back and tell them that you can take that nobody's driven over for years off. But we decided, you know what? It's a historic bridge. I don't want to take the chance. So we didn't. So we headed out towards Clyde, saw the welcome sign there. Beautiful homes. Our very first impression of Clyde was, oh my gosh, this place is stunning. And so we did drive past some homes, beautiful homes, and then we saw the downtown with the cobblestone or the brick streets, and we just went, oh my gosh, this is beautiful. You know, the challenge is there's no place for us to spend any money. I mean, we didn't see any restaurants. We saw the hotel. And by the way, people spend the night where there's things to do after 6 o'clock. Got that, Concordia? What do you have to do after 6? And so, but we did see it's a beautiful downtown. And you know what? Look at this. The most stunning park in Clark County that we saw. It was beautiful. You know what I'm talking about? Right there in Clyde? As a matter of fact, I just looked at, Reflections Park, established in 2007, just absolutely stunning. It alone was probably worth the drive to Clyde, but the problem is you can get us to go there, but if there's no place to spend money, what's the benefit of tourism? And so that was a challenge. But my first thing is I wanted to call whoever did this and set up an appointment so they come and do our backyard, because it was really beautiful. I even like this sign. You know, we love the messaging of consider Clyde, at least consider us for economic development. I thought that was very nicely done. Looks like a pretty new sign. It's well kept. I thought it was just really, really nice. But you know what? There was no signs to any arboretum or anything. Nothing. So we're driving down the road, and it looks like there's little teeny displays by some of these trees. There's no sign or anything saying that this is the arboretum. To this day, we don't know if that's the arboretum. Is it? It is. There's no signs, nothing, but we could see these little displays down here, so we guessed that this must be it. But we didn't know. We saw this. We thought, oh, let's go up into this treehouse. Then we thought, I don't know if this belongs to this person. We don't know. It looks like this must be private. We couldn't tell what was private and what was public, and the dog was just waiting there again. Different dog this time. And he actually looked like he'd be more friendly, but we were a little afraid to get out of the car because we just didn't know. And we didn't know whether this is public or if this is private, public. We don't know. We didn't know what belongs to what because there's no signage or anything. And even when it comes to parking, we parked here, but we thought, boy, if there's going to be big trucks in here, we're going to be in the way. We didn't know. I mean, there's no information, nothing. And so if you want to promote these things for visitors, you got to help us out. You got to make it easy. You got to make it convenient. Does this make sense? I mean, don't promote something if they don't want it to be promoted. And I'm assuming they don't want it to be promoted. Otherwise, there might be signs there. And so, but it was a beautiful little park. One thing is, we did look at these things. If we're going to drive that 20 minutes out to Clyde, or out to Jamestown, or I can't remember one of your southern communities in the county said that there was a new a soda fountain. But you know what? It's like a 40-minute drive. 4 times rule. Let me explain the 4 times rule. Take a look at this video. Oops, we lost our sound. We lost. She's asleep back there. Well, anyway, our sound got turned off. And so we missed that. Let me try it again. Let's see if the sound will come back. There we go.
But with every new day, there's fresh hope.
Hey, easy, kids. Come on, cut it out. Everybody in the car. Boat leaves in 2 minutes. Or perhaps you don't want to see the second largest ball of twine on the face of the earth, which is only 4 short hours away.
So here's the point. Would you drive 4 hours to see the second largest ball of twine on the face of the earth? Here's what people do. And you do it too. I know you do it. There's a thing called the 4 times rule. People will go somewhere if you have activities that are going to keep them busy 4 times longer than it takes them to get there. So let me give you an example. Salina, how long a drive is it from here to Salina? An hour? 50 minutes. I'm going to use an hour just because I'm a poor mathematician. Would you, in Concordia, if you had to pick up a prescription that you could only get in Salina, would you say, I'm going to drive all the way to Salina and get that prescription, then turn around and come back? Or would you say, while I'm there, I'm also going to go do this and this and this and this? Is that what you do? We all live by the 4 times rule. If you expect people from Salina to come to Concordia, and let's say it's an hour, do you have 4 hours worth of activities that are going to cater to them? 4 hours. If you expect people to come from Kansas City and we have to drive 4 hours, 4 times 4 is 16 hours, do you have 2 days worth of activities? So the reason we did not go to the South County to see the soda fountain, because you know what? Are we going to drive 40 minutes each direction to see a soda fountain for 20 minutes? The same applies to the Clyde Arboretum and everything. And Clyde, I think, could be worth that. I mean, just the little garden downtown was. This is why the average stay in Hawaii is 6 nights, and in the Caribbean is 6 nights. Would you go to Hawaii just for the weekend? Probably not. You know, even in Disney, the average stay is 4 nights. That's the 4 times rule. You know, even movie theaters, you know what they do? They look for the audience in a 20-minute drive radius because 4 times 20 minutes is the length of a movie. And so that is the 4 times rule. So there you go. That is it. And so that's what you have to remember. And that will help you. You know, so we thought, okay, let's go out and check out Jamestown. It was on our list. You know, we picked up a brochure. And so we thought, okay, Jamestown is about the same distance the other way as Clyde, right? So we're driving out there to see this Jamestown wildlife area. We do see a sign on the highway on, is it 9? And then it says, wildlife area, turn right. And we're looking up here and going, oh my gosh, how far up there is it going to be? 10 miles, 5 miles, 1 mile? Have no idea. So on your signage, it should always say Jamestown Wildlife Area, turn right 1 mile, or whatever it is. So we did turn right. We did see this, and we went, this is it? This is it, I think. I mean, that's what the sign says, starting to get overgrown. There is, now what do we do? There is absolutely no place to park, no trails, no boardwalks, no interpretive signs, nothing, and no wildlife. Nothing. I mean, there's not even a place to pull over. And then we saw, oh, wait. We did see wildlife. There it is. I'm sure that is an entire herd of wild Mustangs. Probably not. But the problem is, the only place we could find a park was this. It said Buffalo Creek South Marsh. But there is, I don't know, I guess one car at a time can go out there and visit. So once again, you can't promote things if there's no context, nothing to do. So driving all out there for a 5-minute experience was not very fun. And then, by the way, right in front of our car is a sign that says free daily hunt, permit required. I thought this was a refuge. But apparently it's a refuge that allows you to hunt and kill animals there. Usually those, I understand, some things. But so we were there for probably 3 minutes and we went, well, that was a bust. So don't send us on something if there's nothing to experience, nothing to do, no place to even park. And so while we were there, we thought, okay, let's check out Jamestown. I'm sure it can even be nicer than Clyde. And so just remember that your gateway signs, first impressions are lasting impressions. We saw the cute little church there, and then we saw downtown. We went, oops. But you know what? This little place has potential. There's this nonprofit in Minneapolis called Art Space. They buy up stuff like this and they turn it into artist live workplace. So just so you know, anybody in the county here, that could be really a cool little arts community. I didn't see it as old boarded up buildings. I could see, that there are, remember what I said, there are more ghost towns in the making today than ever before in U.S. history. Today. And you could see that happening to Jamestown. But that, I thought, had some real potential. So anyway, after all that excitement, we spent most of the day, we did all of this stuff. I mean, this was our Tuesday, and we were pretty tired. We drove everywhere. We saw all this stuff, and we have done it all, right? Right? What did I miss? So, okay, and so what we're doing is getting ready for dinner. So we thought, well, let's, we ate at Jitters, we ate at Heavy's. Next up, let's try Gambino's. And so we thought, well, let's do that. But we were a little early for dinner. And so, we thought, well, okay, what else was on the list? And then we saw it. By the way, I'll tell you what we saw. But I want to tell you about eating at Gambino's. Since I'm being really harsh here, we walked in, and the young girl said, I'll be with you in a minute. And then she went behind the cash register and just stood there. We were waiting to be seated. Finally, after about 5 minutes, she didn't say anything, and I said, do we just seat ourselves? She goes, oh, no, you need to order here, and then we'll bring it to you. I went, oh, okay. I wish you would have told us that. So we ordered. Then we went and sat down, and we ordered salads. And you know what they did? They brought out a plastic plate with a styrofoam container with salad in it. I'm going, this is an Italian restaurant. They bring you a styrofoam container with pre-made salad in it. And so, you know what? I'm going, and this was rated one of the top restaurants. So just so you know, it was just a little bit disappointing. We had the lasagna, which we thought was good. But before we ate dinner, we remembered, what about this orphan train museum? By the way, we had no clue what it was. And so, we think Nashville should be even bolder there. And complex, we thought maybe it should be center. The National Orphan Train Center. rather than a complex of two buildings. How about center, show kids, not trains, and this was just our first reaction. And so we did see it right here and saw the research center right there. It looks very nice. Love the little figure or the little statues of kids there. Love this. Probably time to change the sign because, we missed it by a year. And so you might want to take that down, put up another one. And so we did go, and a cool thing happened. When we were here, Emily said, by the way, are you going to go visit that orphan train museum? We said, yeah. She goes, did you know you could buy a ticket here, you'll save a little bit of money, and you could use it over there? And I thought that was so cool. I'm so glad you do stuff like that. We're going to use you in other speaking engagements, how the cool things you do in Concordia. So probably a little larger sign right here that just says, start your tour here. And then the hours, so you can see it from a distance. And so we did do that. And we saw this, and what was so cool, this is Millie, and little did we know until we were inside that there actually is a story about a woman named Millie. So we went into this museum, and I'm going, okay, it's going to be another 20-minute experience. And something extraordinary happened. First of all, these are easy to read, they're not overly long, and they are so well written. Between 1860 and 1920, 25 million immigrants. They talk about all the immigrants. They flooded into the city daily. Sometimes 50 or more people may have used a single toilet or outhouse. There were 20 people to a house that was made for 4 people. They were crowded. It created disease. Parents died. They were overrun. There ended up being, kids on the street, living on the street. And look at absolutely fantastic job of telling the stories. When you can evoke emotion as you did here, you captivate the visitor and they will never forget you. And that was our experience at the National Orphan Train Museum. I can't even remember the last time I went into a museum and read every single one of the displays. And we went around and read the stories, because every single one of them was a story. It pulled you into how this started. Life on the streets. The pictures are big, they're bold. You cannot miss them. Top notch. It doesn't take a lot of stuff. It just takes a few to sell the experience. How this worked, how this whole orphan train worked. Look at all these kids with no parents, no families. It was heartbreaking. And the one that got me the most was this one. People expect more of an orphan child than they do of their own. The faults seem greater, are magnified greater. I was sent to take away a boy for the awful crime of going in the cellar and sticking his fingers in some jelly. Would they send away their own child for that? Oh my gosh. Those who take a child and keep him or her will have a great reward. It is the rearing of a monument for greater than that made from marble or granite. That was written in 1906. Man, I was holding back the tears. And when you see these kids and you read these stories of how this little Yetta, was 3 years old, and then you read way down here at the age of 75, she retired. She remained very active, continued to extend her love not only to her children, but her grandchildren, 2 great-grandchildren. In 1999, she passed peacefully, leaving a legacy of care, love, and determination. The many lessons of life that she taught her family will live on in perpetuity along with her memory. How cool is that? So here's my quote that you can use if you want. It was amazing. This alone is easily, it breaks the 4 times rule. This is worth that drive from anywhere. It was an amazing experience. What made it amazing, then when we walked back outside, saw that little statue of Millie, whose story I read, It just touches you to the core. And I can't even remember the last time I was in a museum that did it like this museum did. It is awesome. And you know what? They deserve a hand. Is anybody here from the Orphan Train Museum? Thank you so much. Doing outstanding work. And you know what else is really cool that I'm going to show everywhere? Is doing that. How cool is that? That is awesome. Way to go. Because we will post that experience. By the way, here's what I want to talk to you about, social media. So let me take a little break here. We're going to go on a little side trip, and we're going to talk about digital marketing. Like I said before, 94% of us with the internet use the internet to decide where we're going to go, what we're going to do. And it needs to be great. And like I said before, 70% of people never go past the first page of search results. So you know what? When it comes to your marketing as a business and as a community, for economic development, for tourism, for downtown as a business, this is how you should spend your marketing dollars. 45% of your budget should be spent on digital. That's website, e-newsletter, pay per click to get your on the first page of search results, all those different things. Digital. Advertising, 20%. By the way, your advertising should drive people to your website. And it better be good enough to close the sale. Public relations, 20%. That's articles written about you. And then print materials, 10%. And then trade shows, billboards, other forms of marketing, about 5%. That is how you should be spending your marketing dollars as businesses and as a community. So 45, 20 on advertising, 20 on public relations, 10% on print materials, which are good once we're here, and then 5% on trade shows. And so, social media. You know what? The average visitor goes to 27 websites when they're planning a trip. Social media is not on the list. We're not coming here because you have a Facebook page or a Twitter account. Here's where social media comes in. It's not about you, it's about their tribe. Let me give you an example. This is my daughter, Claire. She has 321 friends in her closed network. 321. She has 3 little kids, our grandkids. She took them on a wash. We're from the Seattle area. She took them on a ferry boat trip. And you know what? Her 321 friends learned about this ferry trip. And they started saying, man, we want to take our kids on that. What'd you do? But here's the more important story. Last November, we took them and the kids to Disneyland. So what does she do? She posts all this stuff. By the way, I sit on the board of the U.S. Travel Association, and one of my board members is Randy Garfield, who is one of the top 3 executives at Disney worldwide. And I was talking to Randy, I said, you know what's so important about these characters? And he goes, I already know what you're going to say. And I said, what? He said, those characters have been around since the 50s, but they are our social media icons. Because we make sure there's Wi-Fi everywhere where these characters are. And the first thing they do is they take this picture and they instantly post it to Instagram, Pinterest. They do all of these things with it, Facebook. And you know what? Her friends started weighing in. What'd you do when you were there? How many days were there? What was it that time of year? How long were the lines? All of a sudden, 321 people were being sold because a family was there. And then there's poor Jane over there. There she is sitting over there by herself. She only has 58 friends in her network, poor thing. You're not laughing? She is, yeah. And you know what? She also posted pictures about Disneyland. So now her 58 friends are knowing. But you know, we went to the Grand Canyon. She posts that. People want to know, well, how was your experience at Grand Canyon? We've been planning a trip to Scotland. What does she do? She posts it. Has anybody else been to Scotland? See what I mean? It's not about your Facebook page. It's about the people that have been in Concordia telling their experience. That was so brilliant about the Orphan Train Museum, is they told you right there, tell people on Facebook right now that you're here. And I have twice as many friends as Jake. I don't know who most of them are, but you know what? I also posted there. Yeah, I had to, of course, doing the manly thing. And so you know what happened is, we go diving, and so this is what it's about. So here's the point. Between the 3 of us, we have more than 500 friends. Now, I'm going to discount half of them because they're all duplicate. They're just all the same aunts and uncles. We're all linked to each other. But you know what? Even if that's 250 friends, and you know what happens is when we post something and they respond, it goes out to their friends. You know, the Facebook algorithm said that our little trip to Disneyland and Claire posting her things and then all the correspondence that went out reached 1,500 people. So what the Orphan Train Museum did by putting those, tell the people on Facebook you're here, is brilliant. But you know what else you could do is little things. We're working on the Cabot Trail of Nova Scotia. World famous, one of the 10 most world famous drives. And they wanted to put up signs that said, welcome to Cabot Trail. And they wanted to put it in English, French, and Gaelic. And they were arguing about it and arguing. They finally called me and said, what should we put on the sign? I said, forget all that. I want you to put in English, the world famous Cabot Trail. World famous. So you know what they did is they did that sign. This is just a lady on Facebook. I don't know who she is. I just grabbed her picture off Facebook. But you know what? They said that since they put those signs up every single day of the year, there are people getting picture taken in front of the sign. That's the power of social media. Should be the world famous National Orphan Train Museum. You know, there's a motorcyclist. I mean, just go there and type in Cabot Trail and you see tons and tons of pictures of these signs, because that is the power of social media. That's what you need to do. While we're on the subject, you need to show specifics. You know, this is just one example. If you're about fishing, you need to answer these questions. Whatever it is, if your website needs to have details, because here's an interesting statistic. 60% of people planning a getaway do it when they're not supposed to. They're at work. They're at church. They're sitting here right now in front of me doing it. No, just kidding. But here's the point, is we want specifics, not generalities. When's the museums open? What is there to do? How does that rolling walk work? All of the things, you need to provide specifics, not generalities. And then avoid lists. Even create sample itineraries. I'd love to see you do a sample itinerary. Because, you know, it would be pretty cool for Concordia. And you cannot let politics kill your marketing efforts. You know what? People subscribe to travel magazines because they give them itineraries. This is one for Cleveland that say, start at this restaurant and here's what you should eat. Then do this, then do this. They go through a whole day. They don't let politics get in the way. They promote specific restaurants and a specific dish. You know, I'll tell you what. We ate at, what's the tea house? Marla's? We ate at the tea house yesterday. Now, I'll tell you what. You have to try their cold strawberry soup. Oh my gosh. After I ate that little cup of soup, I said, I'd like just a big bowl of that. I'll just make that dessert. It was that good. But you know what? That's what visitors want to hear. Think like a travel writer. Think like a travel writer, and that's what you need to do. Don't be afraid to say, when you go to Marla's, it is fabulous. And if they have on the menu that cold strawberry soup, go with a bowl. You know what I mean? I mean, that's what you need to do. And then include video content. You know, this video right here is 15 seconds long. Okay, here we go. There it is. That is pretty much it. Does it make you want to go and do it? It's just that simple. That's what you need to do. And then watch your peer reviews.
Toothpaste, sir.
Thank you.
TripAdvisor. Millions of reviews to help you choose.
So, I have an assistant, Becky. She has been my assistant for 15 years, and I don't stay in a place. I travel 250 days a year. I don't stay in a place if it has terrible reviews. We don't eat in restaurants. So when we were here, the one restaurant we did not eat in was Christie's. And no offense to Christie's, but it was the reviews is why we didn't. But here's the thing. You can respond to the reviews. I don't know how old these are, but when you have 2 terrible, 3 poors, 2 averages, 2 very good, and 2 excellents, and you start to read them, we avoided it. Now, that may not be fair, and it may be really good food. It may have changed ownership. It may have changed management. We don't know. But here's the point. Nobody at Christie's even bothered to respond and say, we've really been working on that. The green beans aren't as mushy as they used to be. That's what somebody said. There was no response, and you can't be defensive, but if you don't respond to a visitor, it seems like they don't really care. So I just want to let you know. That's the only reason we didn't eat there was TripAdvisor. It wasn't because of curb appeal or anything else. We read the reviews, and so we ate at Jitters. We ate at Marlowe's. We ate at other places. And it was the one restaurant downtown we didn't eat at. Nothing is more important than those peer reviews. So that was it at the end of that day. And by the way, we did eat dinner, at Gambino's. And then we went back and started working. And then the next day before yesterday, we're going to talk about downtown because that's what we did. By the way, we did a survey of 400 successful downtown districts. And we found the 20 most common ingredients that led for their success. And by the way, beautification streetscapes are not as important as what's in the buildings. There is a video coming with this assessment, so just so you're going to get, we have a library that's got some videos we want you to watch, and it'll be yours for 90 days to watch something, and we'd like you to watch this. For anybody that's interested in downtown Concordia, you got to watch this. I'm going to touch on a few of them. But here's how important downtown is. The heart and soul of every community besides the people that's downtown. Site selectors looking here for non-tourism, for factories and things. You know what they do? They go into your downtown, and the health of your downtown economically is the health of the community. And you know what? You're not doing real well on that. But there are some things you could do. And look at this. If you don't hang out here, neither will visitors. We asked people, where do you go to hang out? You know what they said? Salina. In Topeka, you know what they said? Lawrence. So the number one activity of visitors is shopping, dining, and entertainment in a pedestrian-friendly, intimate setting. It's not the reason we come. It's the number one activity. You know what? I was in Lawrence on Monday. There's no school in session. Downtown was packed. And they've got most of those 20 ingredients. Look at that. That's where 80% of non-lodging visitor spending takes place. We had a hard time finding any place near downtown that was for visitor spending. We did find some. You had some great little shops. The potential for downtown Concordia is just unbelievable. You've got it. The bones are there. Everything's there. The problem is you don't have any kind of focus. There's no, what are we about? Are we about antiques? Are we about nightlife? Are we about microbrews? Are we about art? What are we about? And that's missing. You've got great little park areas. And so, this is the rule of critical mass. If you want downtown Concordia to be a draw for locals and visitors, you must get the 10-10-10 rule. And here it is. In 3 lineal blocks, minimum, in 3 lineal blocks. Your downtown's like 5. But in 3 of those blocks, and I'm talking not about square blocks, I'm talking about in a row, you need to have 10 places that sell food. I think you've got about maybe 5, something like that. And then you need 10 destination retail shops that we would go out of our way for. And here's the third 10. Are you ready? 10 places open after 6. I could shoot a cannon out here in front of your street at 6:01 and not hit anything because you're all but closed. You know what? Nobody wants to go back to their hotel twiddling their thumbs watching TV because you have nothing to do. And so, downtown needs to get the mall mentality, consistent hours and days. They need to be open in the evening hours. You need to have like businesses grouped together. You know what? If you had 30 restaurants in downtown Concordia, we'd be driving here from Lawrence and from Salina to come here. But you don't have a focus. And you need to have anchor tenants. This is a great anchor tenant. It's only an anchor tenant when there's things happening on the stage, though. See what I mean? And it's a central gathering place. So, antique malls do 10 times the business when they're grouped together. Auto malls do 7 times the business when they're grouped together. Why does Chevy want to be next to Ford, Toyota, and Honda? Because they do more business together. This is why you see gas stations, all the corners are fast food and all those things. You know, even in malls, food courts, critical mass. And there is the point. Sometimes you have to orchestrate the effort. You know, if I go back to that little town of Jefferson, Texas, this is what I told you. They're way out here in the northeast corner of Texas. They call it Oklatex, Oklahoma, Louisiana, and Texas. People drive all the way from Fort. This is a 4.5-hour drive because they have those 125 antique dealers in one little town. So what's your focus? That's what you have to find out. And by the way, in your downtown, beautification pays big dividends. City Hall does a great job. Is that City Hall? No, what is it? It's your office. Great job. Did it used to be a City Hall? Oh, okay. But great job. You know what? You actually set the standard for beautification. And so that's great. Now, what do? He's an optometrist. You know what? People are going to come to the optometrist regardless of whether he does beautification or not. But you know, for those people that see the beautification and go, wow, I'll bet you he does a nice job, because he sets the standard. Beautification is powerful. You know, and most of these, you know what, the city, I think, has the city done these? But you know what? I don't know who's doing those pots that are out there, but they're nice, but they're not enough. Because merchants should do the facades. There should be beautification all along here. And so, you know, look at that. That's Mahone Bay, Nova Scotia. Is that gorgeous or what? Notice the color. This is all in one town, Mahone Bay. Population is like 3,000. I mean, if they could do it, they're in a rural area. Look at that. Doesn't it make you want to go in these places? And in October, they do a scarecrow festival. It draws people from 100 miles away. There's Prince Charles. You know, Lady Camilla. And here's the other thing you need to do. Extend your window displays to exterior spaces. I'll talk more about that in a minute. Doesn't it make you want to go in these shops? I don't see your merchants doing this. You know, look at that. That's great. You know what they did in Fredericksburg, Texas, population 12,000? And by the way, you're a service area for at least 10,000. Don't just think of the people in your city limits. You know what the merchants did? They all got together. Some of them paid $100, $50, $200, whatever they could afford. They got a pot of money. Then they went to a nursery at the end of the season. They said, we'll buy whatever leftover pots you have. They don't even have to match. They just had to be a 21-inch opening at the top. We'll buy whatever you got left. And they gave it to them at like half of what their cost was because they had to get rid of the inventory. And then they put them in a side street. Merchants would grab them. This merchant grabbed a bunch of terracotta. This merchant grabbed these ones. Another merchant grabbed these two. And they set them out where they want them. And they didn't say you only paid $50, you only get this many. They just said, go for it. And then another merchant, there was a bunch left over, so he did a whole grouping of them. Then you know what they did? The next March, they did that in the winter. The next March, they went and got like a dump truck load of topsoil, dumped it in a side street. Then they hired high school band, cheerleaders, different Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, different groups looking to raise money, and said, I'll tell you what, will you help us plant the pots? And they went back to the nursery and said, we want to make sure that most of these things are evergreen. And so they did this. Does this make you want to go in? Look at that. And you know what? They paid those kids a little bit of money to help do that. There was no vandalism because kids protect things they take ownership of. It works. And you know, look at this statistic. I gave it to you before. 70% of first-time sales come from curb appeal. That looks like a nice place to eat. That looks like a nice place to go in. Look at this. Neenah, Wisconsin. Before, after. Retail sales went up by 1/3 just from beautification. Once again, you know what? The city's doing their part. It's up to merchants to do the facades. Beautification pays. And so that is something that's missing in downtown. You have a few merchants have done it. You know, he did it. His optometry office did a great job. Caldwell Bank, Century 21 does a pretty good job. You know, I mean, they got 1, 2, 3. This is what you need. They put a bench out there. It makes it welcoming. And that's what you need to do. And look at that. I'm waiting for the guys. Go ahead. Usually there's some guy in the eye that said, that's all? I want you to take a look at this next photo. It was not staged. What do you see? Did I get that about right? Guys, been there, done that? I have 2 words for you. In downtown Concordia, you should have 30 benches. They should always be at the facade facing out. You've got a couple right outside here. You've got one down at the... no, you didn't have a bench. You got a couple of benches around, but not very many. Got one in front of the theater, the Majestic. Think benches. They make you seem welcome, and they give places for the husbands to sit while the women do the shopping. You know, for anybody just to sit and gather. By the way, I think this is nice, but not enough. You know what? Think about this. You know what sells real estate homes? Curb appeal. That's where that started. But you know what? That's why we don't just beautify the walkway up to our house. We beautify the whole front yard. You need to beautify the whole front yard. So, you know, in this business, this is a great start, but there ought to be like a row box right here full of annuals, and the same thing over here. I've worked in cities where they say we don't allow that. Change it, because beautification sells. You know, even here, this is a spa. I mean, you know, does it make you want to go in? Spas should be beautiful. They should set the standard. Spas and floors should be setting the standard for beautification. Everything in downtown Concordia is so stark and barren. It's your biggest problem. You know, if you want people to hang out there, that's what you got to do. Look at this. This is a place called St. Albert. They're the Botanic Arts City. And you know what? They even have their brand promise on a kiosk right downtown. But what I want to show you, the city did a cool thing. They told their merchants if they would invest up to $5,000 beautifying their properties, the city would pay 50%, up to $2,500. So if you spend $1,000, the city will pay you $500, 50%. So you know, a coffee shop took advantage of that. This is before. They actually changed the name. See these white things? This is before. That's after. Once again, it's the very same place. You can tell by the arched windows. Guess what? Retail sales went up 400% just doing that. 400%. That is the power of beautification. And pretty soon, everybody in town started to do it. So for your merchants, you know what, in your downtown, we don't know what's open, what's closed, what's permanently closed, what's vacant. The way we know that you're in business is from exterior displays and beautification. And by the way, I don't know why you have 2-hour parking in your downtown. Is it really that much of a problem? The days we've been here, it hasn't been that much of a problem. But you know what, people, you know what? This morning, I thought, oh my gosh, if we have to park out there on the street, are we going to get a ticket? Because we're here for 4 hours? Luckily, there was parking on the side, but I'm hoping that that's not 2-hour parking. But so this, quite frankly, you know, I don't see why you're doing this right now. I think the goal is to have to do this, but if you're going to insist on 2-hour parking, you need to tell us where we can find all-day parking. But in a great downtown like Lawrence, the average person will stay in a downtown for 4 hours. Because you know what? If we want to do dinner and theater, it's 4 hours. If we want to eat at one of your restaurants, Jitters or one of these restaurants downtown, and then we want to walk here downtown, if we're looking at our watch, looking for that 2-hour time, you know what we're doing? We're spending less money. And we don't get back and just move our car to a different space. We leave. You know what the rationale is? We cannot get our merchants to get their employees to park somewhere else. So we're going to punish our customers instead. That doesn't work. So there you go. Just letting you know. And there you go. If you insist on tour parking, you better tell me where all-day parking is. Side streets, somewhere. That's what you should do. 2-hour parking, all-day parking, go straight left or right. Somebody stuck a sticker on that one. And then finally, I'm glad you have angle-in parking because that's great. That does increase spending. Well, the next one about downtown is blade signs. Can you tell me what's in any of those shops? You know what? We're new. We're visitors, Concordia. I have no clue what's in any of these shops. We're sitting there on the corner of the highway looking down the street, and there's nothing to entice us to go down the street. We got 1 or 2 little pots. I have no idea what's in this building. The only way I know what's in this building is to go out in the traffic and look back up at the awnings. So can you tell me what's down that street? I think that's Gambino's sign, but that's the only one. So tell me what's in any of these shops besides Threads. I have no clue. I can keep going. I have no clue. So what happens is, without blade signs, you know what happens is, when we come into town, this is what we see. We see signs that are perpendicular to us. As a car and on foot. We're not going to sit there looking out our windows as we're driving down to see what you have way up there on the facades. We just say next and we're gone. So blade signs is one of the first things your merchants could do. These things are like $100, $200, including the mounting hardware. What's in any of these shops? I have no clue. You know, by the way, there's no beautification to draw our attention. I can't tell whether this place is in business or not. You know, flower galleries should be setting the standard for beautification. You know, and by the way, the only way I see that there's a flower shop is if I stand out here in the parking spaces. You know, this is a great sign across the street, but if I'm walking down here, I have no clue what Sixth Fashions and Footwear is. And so that's what you need to know. These are blade signs. There you go. By the way, notice something here? Threads, I'm assuming, I don't know if Threads is a quilt shop, a fabric store, or if it's a clothing store. You need to make it obvious. Chocolate, collectibles, trains, restaurant. Obvious. That's Nantucket. The most successful towns all have blade signs. Nantucket. Notice they don't have to be cookie cutter in size. They just need to be placed similar height, similar width. That's in Nantucket. That's in Carmel, California. You know, I know this is a leather shop. Concepts, I have no clue. Music boxes, great. I can figure that one out. I have no clue. Always promote what it is you're selling before the name of the business. There's Banff, Alberta. Those are blade signs. So that is something you need to work on. This is in Valparaiso, Indiana. It's a little bigger scale, so they have a little bigger signs. You know, so here's more examples. Isn't that great? Look at that. And so I would urge your merchants to do that. You'll see an increase in your sales. By the way, don't ever want to hear about wind loads. This is Lethbridge, Alberta. All these signs are built to 100-mile-an-hour wind loads. And by the way, see this one's blank? They were just putting them up. So they can leave this up, the frames up, and then just replace these if a business changes. And so they were just putting them up when I was there, just mounting these things in them. Because signage says a lot about you. So what do you think? Alignment. Okay, you didn't think that was that funny. How about this one? You know, signage says a lot about you. Okay, some of you are a little slow on that one. See the guy scratching his head? Okay, what do we do now? Does this look like a nice place to stay? It does. You don't even have to see the B&B. It gives you a good first impression. The same here, the Inn at White Salmon. I saw this on a retail store. If you need a specific item, please knock. Other than that, we are closed, thank you. So would you walk up and bang on the door? I mean, signage says a lot about you. Been there, done that? You know what happens when you're going on vacation? You think you're going down memory lane only to find out it's a dead end. I was working in Texas and I'm driving down the street and I see the Be Happy Ranch. I'm driving down further and there was the Happy Go Lucky Ranch. I thought, I love this area of Texas, and then I came to the next ranch. So, you know, I mean, poor Battle Mountain, Nevada just can't get any respect. You know, science says a lot about you. I mean, here we see art. Can you read that? You never use script writing on a sign. Climber Museum. Then we got visitor information. Can you see it back there? We got all this. We got, you know, Longhorn Cattle Company. We got garbage here, go-karts. We got so much junk that we just ignore it all. You know, look at this. This is Ellensburg Rodeo. I mean, look at this. See all the tires here, weeds, garbage, beat up old guardrail. Would you ever have any clue this is one of the top 20 rated rodeos in the United States? Signage says a lot about you. I was in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. I saw that sign, and then I saw this one. By the time I was done sorting out the signs, I was already getting a ticket. But thank goodness I wasn't in New York. I'll let you read this one. Go ahead. Would you shop at any store in that town? I went, whoa, I'm out of here. You know, signage can be pretty welcoming, or if you're in Wyoming, sometimes, well, not. and in Door County, Wisconsin, I saw this one. You know, it was really funny. I was speaking in Wisconsin, and we had like 800 people in the audience. And I showed that sign, and this lady jumps up in the middle of the audience, started going like this, waving her arms at me. And I stopped everything, and I go, yes, ma'am, can I help you? And she yelled out, can you tell me how to get there? And so, does that look like a nice place to stay? See what I mean? You don't even have to see the property. You made a judgment call. You know, and finally, sometimes signage can come down to a personal level. Woo! This gives new meaning to the word branded. You know, how well received was he when he got home from work and see his clothes hanging up in the tree? Whoa. So once again, businesses always, what do you guess this is? Anybody? Crab house? Seafood restaurant? Comedy club? Guess what? They went out of business because they sold kites and windsocks. Can you guess what that is? Jewelry store? Pub? Restaurant? They're barely hanging on because they sell t-shirts and souvenirs. The point is, always promote what you're selling before you promote the name of the store. And that's really important. You know, here it says wood merchant. Can you read that? It says quality handmade gifts and furniture. Nobody can read it. And I know he must sell wood stuff, but I don't know what. So he changed the sign to handmade gifts and furniture, and his sales went up because he sold what it was he was selling before the name of the store. In Jackson, Wyoming, this is it, Grizzly Rick's Market. I wouldn't care about a market if I was in downtown, but he added snacks, sundries, and drinks, and his sales went up by 1/3 because he promoted the lure to pull people in. There's your general rules. They should be no lower than 7 feet, no higher than 9 feet. That means they can be 24 inches tall, and should probably be no wider than about 42 inches. That's a general rule of thumb you might use on 6th Street in downtown Concordia. And so, there you go. And by the way, is your street out here, is it 6th? See, you know what? On 6th Street, you don't have any signs that say 6th Street. I know there's 5th and 7th, so we guessed that this was 6th Street, but then we thought maybe it's Main Street. They just don't put signs on the street. I guess you don't want to tell people what street you're on. And so, even sandwich boards, you know, we're not against sandwich boards as long as they're narrow and they're attractive And some of your merchants use sandwich boards, but they should be more attractive. They should look like this. Because you know what? Even what we read on the sandwich board is a reflection of you. Jitters is great. Love that place. But you know what? Sandwich board, probably use somebody with some really nice handwriting on it. No offense. And so, but stuff like this is great. It makes you want to go in. You know, isn't that great for a little seafood restaurant? And by the way, does this look like this? I got down on this one. This is an entrance to a golf course. Looks pretty nice, doesn't it? So how much would you pay to play around at the Jackpot Golf Club? $100. Anybody pay $100 to play that? 18 holes? How about 50? 25? 10? How much would I have to pay you to play around there? By the way, this is the clubhouse. And this is the sign up at the golf course. I said, why isn't that sign down there by the highway? So Roger, one of our high school students, painted that billboard in the 1970s, and his parents still live here. And every year the golf course revenues go down and down and down. Because you know what? Signage says a lot about you. What do you think? Are you impressed? Come on, it's the Big Pillow Motel. By the way, shops like this, I don't even know what it is. What is it? It's what? A gym? See, I don't know. There's a door open up here. People are walking in and out. I had no clue. There's no signs of any kind on this building. I had no clue. You know, I think the theater does a great job. Majestic right there, and you can see that. I thought it was nice, clean. Got benches. As a matter of fact, I love the little alleyway there. Very nicely done. So, and by the way, why don't you have outdoor dining here? Is it against the city ordinance? If so, change the ordinance. You should do sidewalk cafes this time of year. I mean, you need to bring your downtown to life. It's dead. You know, I mean, these are just examples of outdoor cafes and dining. In Asheville, North Carolina, they have a thing called the crack rule. It has nothing to do with drugs or low-hanging jeans. They tell restaurants to please keep their chairs on this side of this. It's actually this crack. Now, if somebody has their chair and it scoots out there a little bit beyond, maybe it is this crack here. If they do it, they don't come and write them a ticket, you know, but they just say, please work to keep your merchants and their chairs on that side so we allow for wheelchairs and that kind of access. You know, they even do a deal where all corners, they have these little bulb outs and they allow restaurants to put outdoor dining, you know, and so that's what you need to do. I mean, you need to do this. You have 2 or 3 restaurants here. There should be 2 or 3 tables out in front of every restaurant out there this time of year. And by the way, in Asheville, you know what? If you're in a wheelchair, you have to kind of meander through there. They've never had a lawsuit. And you know what? If they see somebody that's handicapped with a stroller, the patrons just go, oh, excuse me, and they'll scoot their chair in. They have never had an issue. But you need to do that. You know, they even say if you have a restaurant here, we will allow you to take up to 2 parking spaces. The city will build this bulb out so that you can put tables and chairs out there. The city does it. But this is the age of outdoor cafes, outdoor dining, all of these kinds of things. And you know what? This is Salem, Massachusetts. These are all silk. It doesn't even have to be expensive. You can even do this. They do this in winter destination. This is in Nelson, British Columbia, population 5,000, about your size. This was in October. They're just taking it for the winter. But during the summer, they allow you to take up a couple parking spaces, and they can put tables and chairs out there. You know, there it is. And this was in the fall. This is Wolfville, Nova Scotia. In this case, they allow the patrons to take up the whole sidewalk, and then they route the pedestrians around it. And you know what? There's no complaints over the loss of parking because it's worth walking the extra block for because you got outdoor dining. You can see where the pedestrians walk around it here. And in the winter, they put them away for snow removal. How cool is that? But these are things you could do in Concordia that wouldn't cost a lot of money, that would get people to come here and spend more time and money here. And these are just lots of examples. That little town of Canmore I showed you earlier, I mean, their population is 10,000. And you know what? Look at this. They've got all kinds of little cubby places for people to eat. And we'd love to see you do this. Look at this ice cream shop. Just by having people sit out there made us want to go in and buy ice cream. They just have 2 tables and 4 chairs. Just something to show that you're alive, that things are going on, that you have outdoor cafes. And that's what you need to do. Here's another example. This is a town that was known, it's Barrie, Ontario, was known for the bar scene. We said, you know what the problem is? It's not that you have too many bars, you don't have enough of the other stuff. So they got their merchants all together. They started putting these outdoor, you can see a person walking around it. The tables and chairs are in there. And in 1 year, they had 11 restaurants did that. And all of a sudden, they weren't known for bars. They were known for restaurants. Totally changed. There it is. There's where you walk around. And in the winter, they put them away. I took this early in the morning. That's why all the chairs are stacked up. They weren't open yet. Is that pretty or what? You know, even working around fire hydrants, they still created the little decks there. And that's what you need to do. You know, we did eat at El Puerto, and it was great. So we did eat at most of the restaurants. Once again, way too many things. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Plus we got the stuff here. Plus we got the stuff here. Too much. We ignored it all. And so, but anyway, good food and everything, but no outdoor dining, no beautification. We ate there because somebody said it was good there. Gambino, same thing. Where's the tables and chairs? I know they don't have a whole big storefront, but boy, just one table and chair with a red umbrella under it can make all the difference in the world. And then number 31, invitations, not rejections. You didn't really like this hotel. Come on, look, it's one bed, $20 by the hour. No, I'm kidding. It actually is in Nevada, so maybe that's true. But first impressions are lasting impression. What's your first impression of First Impressions Pottery? Yeah. This is Grass Valley, California. I took this picture in January. She has a wind curtain up here that blows heat down so she can have the door open. You don't know how inviting open doors are. And it keeps the heat in and the cold out. And these are all silk. Doesn't it make you want to go in? Extend window displays to exterior spaces. This is not outdoor retailing. Look at that. Doesn't that make you want to go in? You can tell it's in business. And merchants should always get that first couple of feet for benches, outdoor displays, dining tables, those kinds of things. Here's another example. And by the way, let me tell you this one. This is in Washington State up near the Canadian border. I went and took this picture. There was a lady, probably in her mid-60s, owns this florist shop. She was out here. She was hauling this thing out here. And then she was hauling out this stand. And then she's bringing out, I said, ma'am, can I help you? And she goes, no. This is my exercise routine. I do this every morning. I said, how much time do you do setting this up? She goes, it takes me about 20 minutes. I said, does it really help your business? She goes, you know, if I didn't do it, I would look like this merchant. She goes, it saved my business just doing that. Your restaurants ought to do stuff like this. They're not. Most of your restaurants don't have any curb appeal at all. You know, I mean, look at that. Doesn't that make you want to go in? So that's what you need to do. And by the way, you don't want to do that. No full. Remember, if you wouldn't put it in a window, then you wouldn't put it outside. You should never allow merchants to do stuff like that. Makes you look like a second-class garage sale town. There you go. Women want to go places where they feel safe and where they feel welcome. That's what beautification does, curb appeal, outdoor dining. Where there are people, there is safety. Does that make you want to go in? That's in Wickford, Rhode Island. It's cute. By the way, there's a little sign next to the door. Your husband called. He said to buy anything you want. Pretty clever, huh? And never say no. Instead, tell me where I can go. And we're talking about public washrooms. I hope none of your merchants are doing that. Because as you start to become more of a visitor destination, there's going to be people who want to do that, and you can't. Instead, you got to tell them where. Okay? And by the way, I wish all your merchants would get rid of closed signs. You know what closed says? Go away. Instead, you could develop signs like this. Tell us when you will be open. You know what I mean? That's an invitation to come back, not go away. You could even do blank ones and then just have the merchant write on there, you know, Monday through Friday, 10 to 6, whatever it is. Because you know what? That says, please come back. Don't just go away. and you could create a lure. Let me tell you a quick little story. I took this picture. It's Grandma's attic. Welcome Penticton Chamber. I took this picture, nothing happening here. Here's the door going into her shop. I came back about 20 minutes later, and there was a line of people lined up down the sidewalk waiting to get into her shop. A line of people. I went, what the heck is that about? I looked behind the line, and there's 2 kids in these 2 chairs eating ice cream cones. It turns out she has a little sign up here that says ice cream. I didn't know. I couldn't see it. But you know, I got in line. I worked my way into the store, and she sells like doilies and candles and home accents and all that stuff. And in the middle of her store, she had a little, one of those 3, the hard ice cream. Is my microphone? It's still working. And so I worked my way all the way up, and I said, ma'am, is this your store? And she goes, you bet. And I said, I mean, you know those kids eating ice cream? I'd give them free ice cream and make them sit out there all day. And she goes, well, that's what I do. And she goes, well, actually, you know what I do is I give kids 1 free ice cream cone every day. They must eat it in those chairs. And there's an unlimited supply of kids. And their moms love me. I said, have you ever kept track? I said, first of all, you have people in your store, you sell home accents. Aren't you worried about ice cream getting on stuff? Because most stores say no food or drink. She goes, you know what? Every once in a while I have an accident, but the revenues I get far outweigh the accidents. I said, have you ever kept track of how much of your sales come from the sale of ice cream? Because that's not your business. She goes, oh yeah, 70% of my sales come from non-ice cream sales. But when those kids are out there, there's lines of people coming to my store. What is the lure that's pulling people into your shops, into your stores? And there you go again. I just want to reiterate that you and your merchant should be doing this. And by the way, it can work in the fall. It can work in the middle of the winter. These are all silk. So when you have signs like this, here you go, Tammy. You know, R&M Crafts, need us, or no, I can't remember whose store this is. You know what? Need us, call us. Are you kidding? Is this place ever open? There's nothing that says they're ever open. It just says if you need something, give us a call. I'm going, you got to be kidding. This is in Concordia. And by the way, you know, there it is. There's please use other door, and then you go to the other door, it says give us a call. I have no idea when or if the store is ever open. And the chance is it might be a great store, but you know what? I'm not going to come back because there was no invitation to return. You know, at least the antique store here puts extensions of window displays in exterior spaces. At least you know that he's in business. You know? And then here you go. When is coming soon? And I understand there was a water main break, and, you know, I saw that on one of the stores. But always give us a time. Coming soon, later this summer, or October 1st, or next June or May. Always give us an invitation to come back. Always. Okay? Here would be a perfect place. Even though this is not a restaurant, putting some chairs and benches out here would just make it seem warm and inviting. It's made for it. And then here's another thing I want you to do. Consider trompe-l'oeil. Trompe-l'oeil is French for fool the eye. This does not fool the eye. But it is a mural, and let me explain trompe-l'oeil. Well, as a matter of fact, let me show you a little 3-minute video of trompe-l'oeil. Here you go. That's what he's going to paint on a wall. And there's the wall. I'm just showing you the short version. This is actually a Mercedes dealership. And they wanted something on the wall that people would take pictures of the Mercedes in front of the picture, so much so that it would promote that dealership. Starting to look pretty three-dimensional, isn't it? Even those bricks are painted on. That's concrete block. Ready? Unbelievable, huh? Asked him how many cars have crashed into the wall. And look at this. You can walk right up to it and you can't tell that it's not three-dimensional until you're just a couple inches away. Pretty unreal, huh? That's trompe-l'oeil. It's fool the eye. You know, this Coca-Cola machine is painted on. These windows are painted on. The awning is painted on. All these windows are painted on. It's a way to at least take stark, empty buildings and make them look good. This is all flat concrete block. That is no shape there. This is all flat. That is during. There's our artist, same guy, Eric Groh, and there it is done. Pretty spectacular, huh? Yo, here's another one. Before, during, after. These can be tourist draws all by themselves. Before, after. Amazing. There it is close up. Here's even a brew house. Notice this hose right here. I'm going to show you this wall. The hose you'll see in the next picture too. There it is. Look at that. And you know what? How many of you know the song? Sitting on a corner in Winslow, Arizona, such a fine sight to see. There's a girl, my lord, in a flatbed Ford slowing down to take a look at me. The famous Eagle song. Guess what? There's no building here. It's just the facade. All this is painted on. There's a couple making out up there. There's homage to the Eagles. 2 million people go out of their way to Winslow to get their picture taken at this trompe-l'oeil. In Huntsville, Texas, they did facade easements where they even gave the city the easement to the facade, and all this stuff was painted on. All of these decorations and everything to make it look great, to fit the historic architecture. And so in your downtown, you have all these opportunities like this. It's just, you could paint windows on it. You could make this look so real. Or, you know, some of these other places. It's just a way to dress. This here is practically an eyesore when you have beautiful architecture all around it. Maybe some trompe-l'oeil could make it look sort of like these buildings. Just an idea. And by the way, you want to make downtown work, it starts with people. This would be a fantastic plaza. What, has that already been floated? Yes, you're right on. And by the way, in our video library, I want you to watch this video. It's there for you. I want you to get everybody you can in the community. I want you to bring it in here somewhere and just show this video. Lasts about an hour. Actually, I think it's a 2-part video. And it will talk to you about the 13 ingredients to a perfect plaza, told through a dozen case histories. So I want to talk about that. This is the development of third places. Our first place is the place we live. It's our home. The second place is where we work. The third place is the place we go to hang out. Starbucks built an entire brand out of creating third places. I would say Jitters is probably a third place here for you. It's a place we go to hang out. And we are moving to the European standard. Italy is one of the most visited countries on earth because every town is built around a piazza. Every town. And so that is the power of plazas. And you know what? What comes first? Businesses downtown? No. People come first and then the businesses follow. That's why when people moved to the suburbs, downtowns died. The retailers went to them. And so what you need first is this kind of activity. That's in Siena. This here's in Florence. It doesn't matter what town you're in Europe, South America, and they're active year-round. They have entertainment. People everywhere starting to narrow streets, big streets like this, they would narrow down to this. Your 6th Street out here is way too wide. You could narrow it down to 2 thinner lanes and extend your sidewalks out to create these kinds of gathering places. There are so many things you could do. Make it interactive. So I want to give you one case history. And yes, it's a little bigger city. It's Rapid City, South Dakota. And we told them right in the middle of downtown, this is about the size of your plaza area. It's about that same size. There's 60 parking spaces. This is an old Sears building. We told them, knock down the Sears building and build a huge plaza. You know, there it is again. We said, build your plaza right there in the middle of your downtown. And so there it is, that lot, and that's what we want to do. But you know what? A guy came along and said, Roger, we're not taking down the Sears building. I just bought it. And I said, why'd you buy it? He says, because I want to see this turn into the plaza. As a matter of fact, I bought this building, gave the city $1 million to build the plaza. Smart guy, because he now owns the most expensive and profitable real estate in Rapid City next to a plaza. And so, this is it before, and that's what we wanted them to build. The Sears building is right here. And of course, he bought the Sears building, so it had to be reduced down. So here it is before. And by the way, this is a parking garage. We even told them put restrooms in there, put in retail shops in there, and the bottom floor parking could be behind it, and maybe you could add a 3rd floor parking on there. This is it before. There it is after. This is on a Sunday morning at 10 a.m. Look at the place. It is packed. There's the 3rd floor parking garage. There's that Sears building, and the whole thing here is all full of restaurants. So whoever owns that building right there, if you could open that up and have restaurants with outdoor dining, plazas need to be monetized. You need to have them be a place where people can spend money. Food trucks, entertainers, restaurants, whatever you can do there. So all of a sudden, car shows started coming into town. And this place just became active, happening. And by the way, before this, I called Rapid City the hole in the middle of the donut. Because 4 million people go there and they don't go into downtown. They went to Mount Rushmore. They went to Sturgis, the biggest motorcycle rally in the world. They went to Deadwood. They went to Custer State Park. They went to all these places, Mount Rushmore, and they weren't coming downtown. All of a sudden, they were coming downtown. Look at restaurants in that Sears building. There's a stage right there. And by the way, here's one thing about your plaza. You must program it. You can't just build a plaza. It needs to be programmed. That means you need to have 250 days of activities in that plaza. But I'm going to show you what I mean by that. Here they were getting ready. They had that car show. And they even had the police department out there showing people how their dogs can jump and how they retrieve things. And it was pretty cool. They just always have stuff going there. All of a sudden, car shows started coming. Motorcycle shows started coming. Quilt Guild started coming. I mean, everybody started coming downtown. This is a splash pad. And they shut it off during that dog show that they were doing there. And look at all the people. Sunday morning at 10. And then when the show is over, they do this. This is an activity day. So if you put a splash pad out in your plaza, it gives kids and families a reason to come downtown Concordia. And then, you know what? Every day that splash pad is going, it's an activity day. And then finally, I know I'm running out of time, all of downtown took off. restaurants. And by the way, in the winter, they put in an ice skating rink that's bigger than Rockefeller Plaza. Guess what? The city makes $130,000 a year just renting ice skates. They have to dole them out because it is so busy. So can you imagine in Concordia if you had an ice rink out there from November through February? That is 120 activity days. You have a splash pad in June, July, August, maybe even into September. That's another 120 activity days. You're already up to 240. Then you put your farmers markets there. You have it active. It is amazing what it could do. And I don't have time to read all of this, but it gives a sense of community that we only had at Summer Nights before. I'm so glad we have it. You know what they do? Every Monday night, they do movies on the square. Somebody, look at that. The average attendance is 3,500. Look what somebody wrote. I grew up in Rapid City and it was never as cool as it is now. If your youth in Concordia are bailing out of this town the moment they graduate from high school, this could fix the problem. It needs to be active. It needs to be programmed. It needs to be a gathering place, and the merchants will follow. And guess what? Pretty soon you're going to have people come from Salina here instead of the other way around. Wouldn't that be cool? You'll have Jamestown coming here. You'll have Clyde coming here. You'll have your other towns coming here. This is the things you need to do. And so wherever you can, add street trees. This is Greenville in the 70s. This is in the 80s. Notice it's down to 2 lanes and angle-in parking. This is it now. Boom. It works. So do that. I'd love to see 6th all full of street trees, all up and down. And then you create places for street entertainers. You have a college here. Let those students hang out and play music. Get those street vendors here. Food trucks, whatever it takes. Now they're doing trolley rides in Greenville. I mean, it just works. And it's a great destination. There you go. About every 30 feet. You know what? Street trees can increase retail sales by 18%. And then finally, I want you to promote the very best of Concordia. And by the way, visitors don't care about counties. How many counties are in Kansas? 105. Have you ever gone anywhere because it was a county? No. So just say Concordia and the area. Nobody cares about county lines. And so promote your anchor tenants specifically. You know what? This is Alpena, Michigan. They did one of these where they went and promoted their best restaurants, their best retail shops, and their best activities. Because as a visitor, the number one asked question, where's a good place to eat? And don't hand me a list. Don't hand me a chamber directory. Where would you eat? That's the number one asked question. And you want them to have a good experience. By the way, each one of these was invited, and they each paid $400 for their panel. And so, you know, here they all are, the Black Sheep Pub. These were all these different ones. And it was really cool. They started, by the way, there's no lodging in here because you hand this out at hotels. Wouldn't it be great if you had this? And here's the criteria they used. It had to be highly regarded by somebody other than themselves. So 80+% positive TripAdvisor reviews. Jitters would be on there for one. As a matter of fact, I made the list for you to get rid of the politics. They had to have good curb appeal. They must be open May through October at least. For you, it might be year-round. They had to be open until at least 6 o'clock p.m. in their case. Hopefully, you'll extend it beyond that. They had to be open 6 days a week. They must be unique to you, so no chains. Sorry, McDonald's is not going to be on the list. And that's what you need to do. Promote whatever it is. And so, you know, I will tell you that yesterday for lunch, we did eat over there. Not much in way of curb appeals. As a matter of fact, we weren't even sure if they were in business. The only way we knew is because we saw all the neat little glasses in there. And we did walk up to the doors, a little tiny sign. And then we did see this was open yesterday, so then we went in. But once again, once we were in, it was fabulous. As a matter of fact, you know what was really cool about this restaurant? The food was fabulous. But one thing that Marla did is she would do things like this. Note from Marla, my dad's family members were farmers in Republic County, and I'm half Bohemian. Now we just say check. We didn't have fancy breads with sophisticated names back then, sometimes grilled. The cheese was usually American cheese. The bread was thin sliced white bread, and the lunch meat was whatever we could afford. You know what? We fell in love with this restaurant because it created a link between us and Marla. Very cool. And you know what? Here's your best of brochure. There you go. Absolutely, that's what I would start with. And then I would say, and while you're here, then you can list the other things. Always promote your anchor tenants because success breeds success. And by the way, yesterday afternoon, after we were done with Marla's, we did get to go through the convent. And I'm telling you, you could even do a walking tour or a driving tour of just stained glass windows in this town. They're amazing. And that was beautiful, and it was great. We wish we could have spent more time there. And so, you know,
finally tonight, in a nation and a culture where everything's been sped up, some may be sad to learn that now applies to the time-honored tradition of quilt making. It's now possible to create an individual blanket work of art in as little as a day. And as you'll see, what this one woman has done is a good thing for her small Missouri town, putting the place on the map and becoming something of a celebrity in the do-it-yourself community. We get her story tonight from NBC's Harry Smith.
It looks like it's been a while since Hamilton, Missouri has been the hotbed of anything. But stop in at the Missouri Star Quilt Company on Main Street and you'll see dozens of people from miles around who have come to see and hear Jenny Doan.
All I was hoping for was, here's Jenny.
Doan figured out how to streamline a process that once took months and even years.
That's our whole goal, is to make it easy. It's always been one of these kind of mysterious things that's way out there that our grandmothers did.
Now just about anyone can make a quilt in a day.
That.
People who quilt the old way.
The purists,
The
yes.
purists.
Yes, purists.
Right. And they look at somebody like you and you're kind of a heretic.
How cool is that? Well, here's my feeling. We're kind of like the McDonald's of the quilt world, you know? I know this looks a little crazy, but
Jenny Doan's quilting revolution started with a few videos she posted on YouTube.
I know it looks really hard, but it's so easy.
In them, her philosophy. First, don't be afraid to make mistakes. And
I don't want to make something that's going to sit on a shelf that's so special that nobody wants to use it. I want to make something that is loved and worn out to the last thread.
Turns out Jenny is so good and her shortcuts work so well.
She's given me my therapy sessions every day.
Sunshine in a barrel.
She now has 150,000 subscribers, and her tutorials have been viewed more than 28 million times. And the Missouri Star Quilt Company is the fastest growing business around. Which is that much more gratifying because Jenny and her family had been knocked flat by the recession, says her son Alan.
Looking around, the fact that we have 85 employees that all feed their families because of what we do just blows me away.
So your name is Nancy?
Yes.
And because people now flock to Hamilton to see Jenny in person, plans are afoot for restaurants and accommodations. Amazing what can happen when you patch a few ideas together. Harry Smith, NBC News, Hamilton, Missouri.
That's why you need an anchor tenant in your downtown. And finally, always watch your peer reviews. Look at that. 86% of people trust peer reviews. And so that is so important. You know what you can do? You can even get these little business cards that just say, when it would be cool if we walked into a restaurant and say, so, the merchant would say, so how'd you like your meal? If we say, oh, it was fabulous, then they would pull out one of these little cards and say, would you mind doing a review for us? Because some of your restaurants don't have any reviews. And if they say, oh, I thought it really sucked, you just keep that card in your pocket. So, finally, last one. We're ready to go. Make a list of these. We're going to send you a report in the next couple of months. It takes a while for us to put all this together. We are going to send you all of these recommendations. We're creating a video of this. We're going to get you all of this stuff, and these are all suggestions. It's a start. And just remember, a diamond is merely a lump of coal that did well under pressure. And finally, I love this little quote here. Love makes the world go round, so does 5 shots of tequila, so what's your point? It's lunchtime. And finally, the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. The second best time is today. The future of Concordia starts right here, right now. And you have so much to offer here. You've got all the bones, all the making. You need to find your focus. Build that plaza. I know it's not cheap. It needs to be programmed. And you're going to see it start to turn around. And wouldn't that be cool? Wouldn't it be cool if you could get back up to that 10,000 population that you used to be? And wouldn't it be great if the youth that lived here came back? And so with that, thank you so much for spending the day here with me. And thank you very much. Thank you.